So, Veilbreaker dropped with Endgame, and it's amazing. Veilbreaker is complete and utter trash!
Bro, you're trash, bro.
Hot trash. What happened? What happened? That's a good question, actually. Now, I'm risking this video being like 19 hours long, right? But I want to be fair to this game. There's a lot of good in this update, so I don't want to be completely one-sided. So let's start with the good ideas of Veilbreaker.
Not afraid.
First, Endgame. Endgame is cool. Everybody wanted Endgame. People have practically been praying to DE, goddamn. People are desperate. They're like a bunch of Beladelphine simps, bro. They've been dropping money on bathwater just so they could get Endgame, and they finally brought it. And yeah, next we have the Archon shard system or whatever, which is basically just super shiny power creep crystals. So cool, I guess. More stuff to grind for. Yay. That's about it. That's about it. Now, unfortunately, all these kind of fall short in some way, which is why this is a bit of a trash update, to be honest.
Trash.
Basically, the endgame mode is just a sortie. It's a few missions that you do in a row, completing one after the other to get to the end one, which is gonna culminate in a super cool boss fight or whatever. And as you see, it's super engaging. Okay, but I have a few problems with this. The first one being, why is it a weekly mission? Why, D? Why? Like seriously, a weekly mission? In game, you can only do it once a week at most? That's kind of wild, I'm not gonna lie. And this isn't just a new issue that just happened to pop up out of nowhere.
Nope.
No, not at all. Warframe has a lot of time gating issues. For example, everything in the game that you build free pretty much, you have to wait like 12 hours for it to build for the most part. There are some things that take way longer than that. Warframes take 3 days. 3 days. I'm waiting on a Warframe to build right now, bro. Time gating is one of the most irritating things in a video game. And honestly, having to deal with this so often in Warframe is extremely frustrating, and it really just wastes your time. I don't even know, bro. I have no words. It's a video game. I shouldn't have to listen to time gates and be told what I can and can't do. And then even worse, it's an end game mode, one of the most hype things that have ever come to Warframe, at least in theory, and you can only do it once a week?
What?
Who likes waiting? Even worse, who likes being told what to do? Probably nobody watching this video because you're all male.
What do you mean by that?
But seriously, it's lame as hell, bro. Time gates suck. And this one had 2 defensive missions. And on top of all of that, it's exactly the same. And I mean exactly the same. There's not much depth to it. It's just a normal mobile defense.
Still working on it. Continue to defend.
Another defense mission. DEY. On the first week, this is how y'all started with 2 defense missions back to back? Who thought that was a good idea? No. Now, maybe you were expecting, I don't know, like jump into a mission and maybe have like cool mechanics to complicate or improve the experience with the game mode. For example, in mobile defense, why not have sentients try and steal the data mass from you so you gotta like chase them to get it back? At least that would mix up the gameplay a little bit. Maybe the further you get into the mission, the more difficult it gets. So by the last defense, you have a ton of Eximus units just swarming you at the defense thing. Or maybe you would have exclusive enemies in the sortie, or at least somewhat exclusive enemies. Maybe you only see in things like Steel Path that are made specially to be mechanical and more interesting. You know, that take a bit of brain cells to fight, maybe? I mean, I'm not asking for a lot, just something a little bit more interesting than a glorified punching bag or bullets or something. Like, why'd you hype this up? But nah, who wants engaging or interesting gameplay? Who needs that, bro? Not you, obviously. Just pop this thing into this other thing and wait for like 2 minutes 3 different times. Like, of course, that's the most engaging thing we could have thought of. And then it's followed up by a random defense mission that's 10 waves? 10? Really? Bruh, my mind is literally about to explode right now. Why did you do this? There's no complicated mechanic that you're trying to solve. It's just, how do I do as much damage as possible? Now, the worst part is the final boss. I mean, he looked dope. He was cool. He looked really cool, actually. But like, what did he do? Literally nothing. This dude spammed blue flashlights at you the whole boss fight. Like, what are you doing, bro? There was one phase in between it where it like switched up gameplay. That was kind of interesting somewhat, but that was about the most mechanical and interesting thing during the entire boss fight. The rest of it, you're pretty much just filling this dude with lead. I don't know, man. The dude had very few mechanics, way too much health, bro, way too much health. This is what they should have done. This is what I would have done. This is how they could have made this 1,000,000 times better. Tell me this isn't fire, bro. Instead of just a 3 mission sortie, for example, they could have made this like a 10 mission long sortie, right? Because it's a weekly thing. You don't have to do it in one day. You should expect people to have to work a little bit to slowly chip away at it. So let's say we give 10. It could be less, could be more, doesn't matter. Just example, 10 missions set up. Now all of these missions, they would be variations of the game modes we already have. Things like mobile defense, exterminate, etc. But they would have cool little twists on them to make them more interesting. The examples that I gave with mobile defense, like the sentient stealing the data mass from you, stuff like that. But every game mode would have very specific random things that could happen to complicate the mission, make it more interesting. Not only that, while you're going through the mission, the boss for that week would be stalking you throughout the mission. For example, we have things like the Stalker or the syndicates that pull up on you randomly. They could have did a variation of that, kind of like with the Kubelich system, where the boss for that week would randomly show up in those missions. Or what if he was just following you randomly, and then when you turn around he vanishes, and then he like says some nonsense in your little recording orbiter. What the hell is that anyway? You know what, this video is not about to be 90 minutes long, I promise you it's not. But you get the point. They could have built up this threat way better than they did. Instead, there's just a new mission, a cool looking dude that you shoot at for 15 minutes and he evaporates. It's really bad, man. Imagine a freaking demon dude just pulling up in your random missions, antagonizing you. As a matter of fact, those weird mission conditions or extra complications during the mission could all be caused by the boss fight for that week. He's like Dio Brando in the background, just pissing you off for all 10 of these missions. So by the time you get to the end boss fight, you're like, bro, I want to rip this man's head off. Like, your blood's fuming, you're pissed. And so it would have made the payoff when you did beat the boss way more enjoyable. And then when you get to the boss fight, they could have given them way more mechanics. The weird floating flashlight beam thing, whatever the hell you would call that. The mechanics are really basic. They were terribly explained. Of course, you can't like put a tutorial necessarily when it comes to like a boss fight. You're not about to stop everything you're doing and then walk us through how to fight the boss. But there should be a natural level of like, oh, if you're in this blue area, you should be taking damage or you should be CC'd. There should be a way that the gameplay naturally teaches you about what you're fighting, so you learn from the experience and then you can adapt over time. I mean, seriously, for the love of God, DE, why give us the power of a freaking crack-induced rabbit so we can stare at a guy and hold the freaking fire button down for like 5 hours? Why? They could have put so many different movement things with their movement system. That should probably be like the main thing they focus on. The movement is such a focus of the game, and they just act like you're just walking around slow as hell like a Grenier dude just strolling on down the street. Like, what are you doing, bro? You can literally flip around. They could have had fireballs coming from the sky. They could have gave you like a bunch of telegraphs. They should have locked you in a very specific stage. That way they could develop the map around the boss fight. Like, they could have done so much with this, but instead they just threw a dude on the Earth tile set, which is one of the worst tile sets in the game, by the way. And he just, once again, with the freaking disco ball of death. Like, what are you doing, bro? What is all this life? sweet. And the best part about adding actual mechanical difficulty and progression throughout things like boss fights in the game in general is that you won't have to make all these super bullet sponge enemies. You won't have to worry about having them be super difficult to kill, because as long as they can last long enough to give the player a challenge throughout those phases and those telegraphs, it would have served its purpose. But instead, they were just like, throw an HP bar at this man, just make him dumb thick, bro. With more interesting mechanics, you'll be dodging and solving problems while trying to survive and fight the boss. And so it would be a lot more interesting, but also a lot more difficult. And DE, I know you can do better. And so can you by hitting that subscribe button.
Got it!
Liking the video and commenting down below what you think about the video and Veilbreaker. I'm really curious about other people's opinions on the update, because obviously my opinions ain't the highest, I suppose. To be completely honest. But on with the video. We have Archon Shards. Now this does open up a level of build variety, but honestly, most of the stats are just hella mid, bro. Hella mid, which kind of explains this whole update, really.
You wanna know who I am? I'm the nigga that you ain't good enough to be. You ain't nothing but a player 2-ass nigga Luigi. That's it. That's all you are. That's all you ever gonna be. When you die, that's how niggas gonna remember you. Player fucking 2.
But
Oh no.
Warframe has a lot of issues due to poor balancing, and so getting 150 health, for example, is mostly completely useless. Let's keep it a buck. And even worse, it's boring. These are not interesting changes for the most part. I mean, maybe if you put 70% strength on a frame, you could do a cool build. But like, this isn't super exciting. I mean, to the Warframe players in the community, they'll take what they can get, you know what I'm saying? They're SIPs, bro. If they could get a DM from Belle Delphine, bro, they'll take it. But to someone who plays other games, who has actual standard, okay, maybe that's a bit, but maybe I'm going in too deep, yo. But seriously, to people who have a level of like standards built from better products, I would say, I feel like these statistical changes are extremely basic. Instead, what they could have done was introduce a ton of activated abilities. For example, you have games like The Division, you have talents and stuff. They basically could have just introduced talents in the Warframe, but with more interesting effects that would make you change up the way you play. But that still isn't the best thing, because there's way too much crap in Warframe, bro. Way too much. It's only going to complicate balancing even more in the future, making the game even more frustrating to both play and develop. I mean, seriously, aren't there like galvanized shot? It doesn't even work on every weapon in the game. How long has that been in the game, bro? How long? Probably like a year now, and it still just works, right? Some weapons it works, some weapons it doesn't, even though it's supposed to. They can't even get a mod right, and they added a whole new system that allows you to change stats of weapons in Warframe, and they think that's a good idea? Nah, bruh. That's not it. That is not how life works. This brings to light some long-standing issues of the game. For example, how do you create fun, engaging, and challenging boss fight in Warframe? Well, the boss can't get one shot, or else no matter how many cool mechanics or whatever you have, it's going to be completely useless if he evaporates as soon as you blink in his direction, right? Which is usually how Warframe gameplay goes. But how the hell does DE balance a boss's HP bar, for example, when you have 50 frames and thousands of weapons that are so different in performance? It's almost insane, bro. Trying to balance with all those variables in mind is borderline impossible. It's making me angry just thinking about having to manage all these variables. Think about it, bro. Say you build a boss with someone with a normal Excalibur with a Soma Prime as a point of reference, right? Well, that's gonna get folded by everyone carrying around a freaking Kuva Brahma. It's instantly gonna evaporate. So maybe you reverse it, you know, you balance it around the Kuva Brahma. But then you're gonna have even more issues because the Kuva Brahma is one of the best weapons in the game. So if you bring a freaking, I don't know, Axe Stiletto Prime, no matter how good the weapon is, compared to the Kuva Brahma, it's dog doo-doo, hot dog water levels of trash. So they've erased 90% of the build variety in a looter shooter, where build variety and customization is literally the main focus of the game. And it goes against the core of what Warframe is supposed to be, but there's no balance in Warframe. So it's almost impossible to create engaging activities or enemies without completely gutting core systems. The Bible talks about building your house on the rock. If you haven't read it, you probably should. It's a pretty good book, but I digress. The point is, Warframe should always worry about the foundational points the most, because ultimately that's what everything else is going to be built upon. If the foundation is trash, you're screwed. And Warframe's foundation right now, it's looking like an OnlyFans model's career. Like, it's not reliable or long-term at all. Warframe's foundational issues are way too serious to continue building on top of it. It's just a bad idea, and I know DE probably knows this to an extent at least, but I think they're trying to like band-aid and patch it up around the sides and stuff, you know, but eventually it's all gonna fall apart. It's just a matter of time. Now, they could start reworking core systems of the game, but that's extremely risky, bro. Extremely risky. For example, they just nerfed AoE weapons and they got review bombed in China. Warframe stocks go mess around, start looking like Bitcoin in a minute, just plummeting straight into oblivion, bro. Their investors are gonna pull out faster. You know, I can't make that joke. What did he say? So basically, not only does Veilbreaker suck, it shows, like our economy, it's a ticking time bomb. And eventually, it's gonna blow up. And that's all I have to say for today. Thanks for listening. Hope I managed to brighten up your day. God bless, and lights out.